Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm making a video about my Catasetum. And this is my Frecklecara After Dark you're seeing here. It grew beautifully this season. It has a really nice and fat and plump pseudobulb right here and another second smaller one back here. And they both seem pretty healthy, doing well, and I'm just waiting for them to give me a spike, which I'm expecting will happen later because I bought this one in bloom somewhere in January. So I expect it will start spiking later when all the leaves has dropped, maybe around December. So I'm not worried about the fact there are no spikes yet. That still just has to come. But what I am worried about is what's happening to the leaves. This patterning here on the tip of the leaf is really quite odd. I wasn't sure what it could be because it looks sunken in. But it's not cold damage because it isn't against the window, it's not heat damage either. I haven't found any pests anywhere. And it doesn't look like leaf tip dieback either, which usually just really starts at the tippy tip, and you can see it also kind of starts on the side. Catch the light there, see? So all those things didn't really match with me. I didn't know what it would be, and it's on several leaves. And as you can see, I've already attempted to cut it off once before, actually twice before, but it keeps coming back. And it also appears on other leaves because now, for instance, this leaf is also again the same pattern. So it's something systemic throughout the entire plant, and it keeps coming back. It doesn't respond to being cut out. It comes back within like 2 weeks or something like that. So I went online to try and figure out what it was, and I asked some people what they thought it might be, and you know, you get the standard responses of dry air, which I already kind of ruled out, also because it's not that dry now, and most of my other plants, well, all of my plants, don't have this problem. And someone else brought up just normal dormancy, but I'm pretty sure this is not what normal dormancy looks like. So in the end, someone brought up the possibility that it's fertilizer burn, that I'm not seeing fertilizer burn in the roots, but only in the leaves. And that is quite possible. Well, at first, actually, I wasn't sure about that because I give all four my Catasetum the exact same fertilizer. They get the same amount, all of them. And only this one is showing issues. And I don't know why that would be the case. But then I started thinking more. If you look inside this pot, just get the sunlight in there a little bit. If you look inside this pot, you can see that the moss is quite discolored, and that's because this was the first one to go into moss, and I was playing around with it a bit, adding a lot of water, etc., and it's the most degraded of all the four. Which meant that at some point, when I measured the pH of the water that was coming out of the pot, the pH went as low as 2.5. And I was quite shocked by that. And I ran out, I got myself some baking powder, and I mixed a bunch of baking powder through my next watering to try and lower the pH. And believe me, I put a lot of baking powder in there to try and get a pH to drop a little bit to a normal level, usually around 6 or something like that. So I started thinking, I only really gave this pot such a huge amount. The other pots I only gave a small bit because they weren't quite as bad. What if the baking powder just stayed in that pot the entire time and started accumulating? Then that would explain potentially this fertilizer burn we've been having, because it definitely has more baking powder than the other pots. So we'll soak this pot in tap water. We'll test the TDH with my TDH meter. And compare that to the TDH measurement of the tap water that's just in a plain cup somewhere. Alright, and then hopefully we'll see just how much salt has been accumulating in this pot. And we can hopefully get rid of the problem just by soaking this pot a lot and allowing the water to kind of draw it out and dilute it. Okay, I have soaked this pot with plain tap water for a while, and I've also put the same tap water in this glass. So first we'll test the TDH of the glass of water. Now, a little bit of background on TDH. This does not actually measure, this is a TDH meter right here, this does not actually measure the parts per million of salts in your solution. It only measures the conductivity, really. And from that, it uses some algorithms and some, transformation calculations to turn it into a ppm reading. But this doesn't really tell you per se how much fertilizer you've got in your pot or anything like that, because certain salts conduct more than other salts, as far as I'm aware. So this is always a rough estimate. However, it's sufficient to tell us whether this is leaking a lot of different salts compared to this tap water. It's enough for us to test whether fertilizer or the baking powder in this case could potentially be the problem. So we'll turn this on. And we'll place it in here. And as you can see, it's, let's say, about 180, easier to remember, 180 parts per million is what it says. Here you can see parts per million. I hope you can read it a bit. Now next, we'll test the water that's on top of this pot. Alright, 660. So there's definitely something leaching out, but it could be worse. It's not quite that bad yet. But it's probably better to lift this plant up. Sorry, it's a little heavy. The sphagnum moss is saturated with water now. And place it in the pot. Oh, okay. Do you see this blinking light over here? That means times 10. So that means that this now has a ppm of 1660, which is substantially more than the tap water. So I'm thinking that it went up. I'm thinking that the idea that it's fertilizer burn has some merit. Okay, I'm going to dump out this water and I'll flush it one more time to try and get even more salts out. Because you have to imagine that every time you try and flush out the moisture like this, overflow. Through osmosis, the way it works is that in the end, the pot and the water has roughly the same amount of salts in there. It kind of gets halved, kind of. It tries to make this equilibrium with where the salts go. So you can expect this pot to still have a TDS of about 1660 ppm, which is not okay. So we're going to do this a few times, and it should be that every time I soak this with fresh water, the TDS goes down and down and down and down until it gets down to acceptable levels. So we are going to keep doing that until we no longer have a ppm of, I think, larger than 400. I think I'll try and get it down to about 400 or something like that. Okay, I was off doing some things, and now I've waited long enough, I think, about 10 minutes, to see whether the TDH of this water has increased at all compared to this. I've replaced the water in this glass, because one thing that's also important when you're measuring and comparing TDH is the temperature of the water, because the temperature does also affect conductivity. And if you have a higher temperature, your TDH increases compared to a lower temperature. So that's something to keep in mind. So I just replaced both of the waters to try and keep them at roughly the same temperature, because I'm not giving this cold water, I'm giving this about room temperature water. But of course it cools down as it's in the pot. As you can see, it's at 0 when it goes in. And it goes in and it's about 180 again. And 0 again, and then... Alright, so you can see it's decreasing. It's much less than last time. But we also know last time on the top it wasn't quite bad, but in the pot itself it was catastrophic. Let's see. We still have the times 10 flashing on and off. So we have about 1000 ppm, which is still too much. So we're going to be rinsing and repeating this one more time. Okay, we're back to soak number 3. So again, TDS meter at 0. Again, around 180 ppm. And then I'm just going to go straight to picking this up. Ah, look at that. I hope you can read it. It says 458 ppm. So as you can see, it is roughly halving each time. Last time it went from 1600 to 1000 roughly, and then it went from 1000 to about, well, almost 500. So it is roughly halving each time, which is what I expected. So excellent. Just for good measure, I think I'll do this one more time, just one more soak, see how low we can get it. It is at the 400, which I said was kind of my goal. I don't know how possible it is to get lower, because of course sphagnum moss itself also has little bits and pieces in there. It's never going to go to a 0. Of course not, because I have tap water. It's never going to go to 200 or anything like that. But I want to get it just as low as possible so I can start with a clean slate. So I'll do just soak just one more time. I'm back for soak number 4. So 0, about 180. And then we lift the pot. Oh, look at that. Actually, I'm getting close to 200. 252. That's excellent. Okay. And again, as you can see, it's half. So it seems like it does indeed work through osmosis, and it's all going exactly as I expected, which is great. Just for fun, I'll do one more soak just to see how low this can go, because it shouldn't go below 200. If it goes below 200, and something's a little bit weird. And I'm back, this time after a short soak because I'm getting impatient and I want to do other stuff. So 0 goes in here to form more than 186, and this is probably because it's still warmer than last time. Yeah, it's still a little bit warm, so you can see the conductivity goes up a bit. It's not that warm, just a little bit warmer than the other times. And then we take this plant out of the pot again. 210. Okay, so as you can see, it didn't half, which was not expected anyway because the water that I'm flushing with has a TDS of 180. So, you know, it's going to keep halving. So if you want to get back to 180, you're going to have to do a few more flushes until you approach that number. But I'm perfectly happy with this. This is lower than I expected, honestly, to be able to reach. So now, if the problem with this Calcareous after dark was indeed fertilizer burn, or, well, salt burn in general, not necessarily fertilizer in this case, but the baking powder, then this problem should now be solved. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off these leaf tips again, the ones that are affected. And then I'm going to just leave it be for another week or two, which is usually when they start reappearing, and see what happens. If they stay away, I'm going to conclude that this was indeed the reason, that I added way too much baking powder to try and balance the pH of the pots, and that I should be more careful about that in the future. But if they return, then I think I'm going to have to keep looking for another reason, because with a TDS of 200 in the pot, with a growing Catasetum, there's no way that causes fertilizer burn. Okay, so now I'll cut off these leaf tips, like so. Oh, what you're seeing down there, by the way, this is the tripod leg. Tripod leg. It's just in frame because I'm pointing the camera way down to be able to show you what I'm cutting. There. Alright, I believe that that's all of them. I don't see any more pots. Oh, and this was sunburn. I was experimenting with how much light these guys could take, and I gave them a little bit too much because it was literally the height of summer and there was a heat wave and they were in direct sun. It was a little bit too much, obviously. Sorry about the noises now, by the way. I forgot I had the window open, and I live on a super busy street with construction going on all the time. So I'm sorry if that made the video a little bit noisy just now. But here we go. The Fred Calcareous has been soaked a lot, salt's drawn out of the pot. We've cut the leaves. I will seal them with cinnamon, but I think that's a bit boring for you to see, so I'll do it in my own time off camera. And then I'll continue this video in about 2 weeks or so, when it'll be after I move houses, apartments, so it will take a little while. And then I can see whether any of the spotting has returned, and we can potentially conclude whether this was indeed fertilizer burn or not, and then we'll know it for the future. So see you in 2 weeks.